Hey guys, and how's it going? This is a snowblower I picked up over the summertime at a yard sale. I want to say I thought it was 40 bucks, and somewhere between 30 and 60. We'll go with 40. I don't know anything about it. I did fire it up and it ran, and that's about it. I kind of put it away in the stash till this time of the year when all this stuff is desired. You know, summertime they're not worth much, but in the wintertime, their value goes way up. Kind of like generators when the power goes out. So I haven't touched it, I haven't done anything with it. I figure it would make for a good video. It always seems to make a better video if you don't have any previous knowledge and we can kind of discover stuff together. But I'm going to do a service on it and get it back into operating condition. And here we go. I've got a receipt with some private information on it. Let me go look at that real quick. I know I keep bouncing from side to side, but I'm trying to get you where the best view is. Most of the time, most of the wear that you find, other than abuse, is going to be the drive belts and the drive disc. Let's see what we got. You gotta take tension off when you spin the idlers. Both of those feel pretty good. That one's quiet. The other one, I don't know if we're gonna be able to get the belt off of it to spin it. No, we're not right now. We'll look at that later. I want to put it up, try to tilt it up on its ass end and pull the belly pan off and take a look at the drive disc. That's the other common wear spot. It's got half a tank in it, so let's throw some plastic over the cap. Easier said than done, right? Think it's gonna leak? I guess you can flip that up. See the auger shoot out of the way. Should not flip all the way over. There we go. And we'll get that belly pan off of there. Think any mice? A little bit. There was a nest in there, as you can see by the lovely smorgasbord of dead salad, mouse salad. And off to the trash chute. I expected that to be stuck on there, but worse than that. Yeah, it's got some hours on it. You could see whether this is like first gear. Actually, we'll start here. The closer to the center it is first gear, and then you get out to like fifth gear the further you go out. And you can see where the burnout marks are, where it's really popular that it's been sitting and overworked. This, when you see this out here, this is somebody just not using the machine correctly. What they're doing is they're in heavy snow and they're kind of slipping the disc and burning up the disc. It actually doesn't feel too bad. It's worn down some, and it's worn slightly on a taper. It's not going to show up on video, but it's slightly on an angle. I'll shift it, and I'll show you what I mean as far as what it does. So right now, so that's fifth gear. And up and over. That's reverse, because it's on the other side of it. So as this is spinning, it just spins the wheels the opposite direction. Everything seems pretty free. Sometimes this area rusts up. That doesn't look too bad. The disc, I'm looking for any chomps taken out of it. Eventually it'll wear down so far where it won't bite and it'll cause it to slip. Sometimes you can adjust it. A lot of times you just end up changing out the discs. The discs are like 40 bucks. Between like 30 and 60, depending on the machine. This one seems to be pretty good. I am probably going to take a Scotch-Brite and knock some of this excess off of here and just make sure there's no damage on it. And then for the drive of it, you hit the lever, you'll see this plate will actually shift. It's on a pivot, and the disc doesn't move, but the I don't know what to call it, the lower pulley, because that's what the belt is on a bearing, and it pivots on a shaft, and then it runs into this, because you see right now it's not touching it, so that would be neutral. If you wanted it to move, you can see the disc move, and then because this is spinning all the time, that would make that drive. So that's how that works. For the auger part of it, and the part that throws the snow, it's different. The belt turns and not turns for the on and off part of it. I rotated that sideways so it lights a little bit better. This is just soap and water. You don't want to get any kind of oil on here for obvious reasons. Unless you like doing smoky burnouts in. There's it, please. There's a brake on the belt up top. That's why I won't turn one way. That's a little better. Another thing that I find from the factory, hold on a second, is they don't have a, they don't lube them up pretty good from the factory. They kind of just very minimal. Right here, we want some lube so that this can slide across, and then a very common spot right here is the bushings. They're just like a plastic bushing. Sometimes there's really nothing there where the wheels spin, and they have a tendency to rust out. And what you do is you'll grab the axle, and you'll see it'll have a ton of play because it starts burning up. As it rusts, it starts burning up the plastic that's in there. So we're gonna go disassemble that a little bit, get some grease on there, and put it back together. Yeah, I didn't think so. Chances are that wheel's gonna come off. It's going. You can always just shoot some lube behind it too if it doesn't come apart. Anyway, I'll lube up this too. But that right there is what I'm talking about. That's the bushing. And they just put it together dry. And eventually over time, I've seen them where this is just totally gone. It's actually two halves. It'll slice itself right in half, and one side goes one way, one goes the other. And that's the outcome of the axle. With lawnmowers, it's kind of a mixed bag, because on a lawnmower or riding mower or push mower, it's kind of a dirty area. So if you grease a bearing like this, sometimes it'll track the dirt and stuff that's kind of getting kicked up from the mower, and the grease sticks to the dirt sticks to the grease, and then it kind of grinds itself apart too. So that's kind of iffy on that. But on a snowblower doesn't even run an air cleaner, because it's basically used in a dust-free environment, just working with snow. There's not much to really be an issue. Kind of like a boat engine too, an outboard. Same thing, doesn't have an air cleaner. So we're gonna go pull these back. I'm gonna go clean this up and lube here and lube there. Do the same on the other side. Some guys like to use anti-seize. Anti-seize is good for something that is not sliding, but it's really not, it's not a grease, it's not a lubricant. So in an area that you have something spinning on it, I kind of prefer grease. And I'll even use it for the areas too where normally you would put anti-seize, but I'll still do this. And you're just kind of making a moisture barrier. as long as water can attack the metal, it won't rust. Kind of like what I do for undercoating. I'm just gonna go lube that stuff up. Put the spacer back in. Yeah, I'll give the wheel a little bit of doctor's orders there. I think a leaf just came out of it. What's that? Piece of paint. That's what it was. So, I gotta double check my direction, but and then for the future, if you ever have to go change a tire or something on it, it'll come off, because sometimes this stuff just turns into a bear. If it's left unchecked, it will definitely make it to the point where you end up throwing the machine away or cutting stuff off because it just welds itself together. Yeah, you can always see the rust puking out of this one over here and onto the wheel, wherever it's at. Looks like it sat in one position. That's where the water just kind of ran down the rim. Yeah, see it? Again, do the same on that side. That's back together. That'll last its lifetime now. And then we're just going to take a little bit, and we're just going to give. Don't want to overdo it, because again, you don't want to get anything flung onto that disc. Let's go kick that to the other side. Get on there and a lube on that side. I've seen these where it's just been nothing but total solid rust, and you get it. You'll know when you're trying to shift it, and it's really hard to move the lever back and forth. That's an indication that that area is bad. And if that's the case, take a wire wheel and you clean up that surface, and then sometimes you have to actually hammer the disc to one side and then clean up the other side, grease it, and it comes back. But this one's nice and simple. A lot of times they have chains and stuff that kind of drive different components. I actually like the gear setup on this. The longevity and simpleness of it just make for a better. I'm also going to just throw a little bit on the gears, and then as that goes around, that'll get deposited. I'm going to throw a little bit on the little gear too. And then as that kind of goes around, that'll deposit itself. And again, that's just to try to really keep rust off. It really doesn't need the speed that thing moves at. It's probably about that fast, and then in low gear, it's probably about that fast. So. This has sealed roll bearings on the side. They don't need to be addressed, but sometimes these bearings are the same as the bushings up here, and they do the same thing. And if that was the case, I would attack them and do the same thing to them. And most of the time I find that tire pressures have never been looked at its whole life. This machine's probably about 10 years old. What do you think it's going to be? I'm going to say 3 pounds. Or 0. Okay. On power equipment, generally like 10, between between 6 and 15. 10's kind of a safe number. A hair over. That's 10 right there. You actually kind of want it to be a little squishy, so that when it grabs the ground when you're trying to go through snow, you actually want the tire to be a little bit on the flat side, because if you were to point you at the tread, you think about it. Cars are the same way too, snow tires. When you push on it, the tread, when this goes flat, the dimension from here to here actually gets closer. So as the tire goes around, it actually grips the ground. True in like sand and stuff too. You ever watch off-roaders, you air down your tires, kind of the same idea. Well, snowblowers the same way. Tractors the same way too. What's it say? Max inflate 20 psi. You gotta watch these because they don't really have the cords in them like a car tire. They'll be putting them up to like 30, 35, or else you're gonna know it. Next thing is the carb. I want to start getting some of this plastic out of the way. I may or may not show that. We'll get down to the carb. If I wasn't doing video, there's access to the bowl underneath. I would just kind of pull it down and see how dirty it was. But for the sake of video, maybe we'll pull some of the plastics away. I got that cover pulled back and a pair of vice grips on the fuel line. Let's go see what wonders. This will tell the tale whether it was maintained as far as fuel for the winter. Well, fuel for the summer, but it was run out of fuel. Let that pee for a second. Hopefully we don't have to pull the carb off. Now that I said it, I just screwed myself. And clean it. Hopefully it just rinse the bowl out and move forward. It did run. I think it was on the yard sale video when I brought it home. We fired it up. It's got a little bit of crap floating in the bottom, where that gel stuff is. Stab that with a stick, see what it does. Yeah. A little bit of a crud. Not bad though, no corrosion on or anything on the bowl. I think we'll just blow that out and put it back together. I see sometimes from Stable, you see this? Sometimes if somebody puts too much Stable in the fuel, I've seen this before, just kind of like punky looking stuff. Yeah, see what we got for fuel too. Actually, you know what? Let's let that run for a second. I'm just going to check the float, make sure it shuts the fuel off. It does. And I'm going to let that settle for a second and just make sure there's no water that accumulates in that very bottom there. Probably going to dump that out and then run it one more time. Make sure it's coming out clean. If it has any contaminants, I'll purge that whole tank out. A lot better than a lot of the ones we see, right? Clean cut. Let's go let it. Generally water falls to the bottom of the tank too, so just water in it. That's when it'll pop out. That looks pretty good. So hit that carb with some compressed air, and it looks pretty good inside. So we're not going to go pull that. There's no reason to. Let's roll that plastic back on and the bowl back on. One thing I wanted to show, this is the key, but it's kind of a different style. You could either kill it by pulling that out, or if you don't want, Junior to go fire it up in the garage when no one's around and stick his hands in there, you remove the key and you take it away. It's not like a key that you put in and you turn. It just opens and closes a set of contacts on the inside. Generally they come with a spare. Yeah, it's in the bag over there. Usually come with two because they figure you're probably going to lose one. Now we're going to adjust the valves. Most of the overhead valve stuff is adjustable, and when they're first time around, the engines kind of have to settle in a little bit. They kind of beat themselves to whatever dimension they're going to be. So I'd say 25 hours, 30 hours, 40 hours, 20 to 40 hours. You want to adjust the valves the first time around. Then probably about every 100 to 150 after that gets adjusted. socket on there. It's carbon, but there's no wear on the tip. We'll just clean that up and use that over. We need the plug out though to find top dead center, and I got to get the valve cover off yet. Should get a rag for underneath it. You want to do this when it's cold too. And we got a paper towel. Sometimes they get a little bit of dribble, sometimes not. There we go. That was good for the gasket. We are going to have to use some right stuff to fix that, unfortunately. So we got to get something to put in there that is not scratchable, and we're going to go try to find top dead center. Try to figure out where the best space for you is. So you want it so that the valves are not moving. So we're not on the compression stroke yet because you can see that valve moving. It's going back down. Right there. Got plenty of valves. You would crack the outer nut loose and then turn the inner one in for adjustment. Intake and exhaust, it's 4 on intake plus or minus a thou, and 6 on exhaust plus or minus a thou. And again, you could tell which valve it is by which side it's closest to. So the carburetor's on this side is the intake valve. This is close to the exhaust going out, so this is the exhaust one. So you want 4 on the intake and 6 on the exhaust. Let's go grab my little feeler gauge. So people commented on another video that you have to go past the top dead center. It's not true with these. Some have a decompression valve. I'm trying to figure out, read my feeler gauges there. That's a 6. So 6 will be the exhaust. That is actually, if anything, it's just a hair too loose, but not bad. Let's see what we get on the intake. The intake is perfect. Yeah, we're good. Surprised. He may have had a service sometime in his life. And that actually, that exhaust is pretty good too. But you would just crack the outer nut loose, and then there's one behind it. I'm not sure if that's showing up on camera, if you could see it or not. Oops, sorry. So you would back this nut off, and there's a nut behind it. You would rotate that nut. That's the one that increases and decreases the tension. And this one just locks the nut back down once you get the right tension on it. We don't need to do it on this one. We can go get a little bit of goop on that valve cover gasket. We'll close that up. Let me pop that back together. This right here, if you have one sealer in your garage, I would probably go with this. It seems to be the most universal stuff I've found. I'm not sponsored by them or anything. I just, big fan of it. That's what's on. And I just put it right where the brake was on the valve cover, just kind of right in that one spot. That way the next time you go to take it off, it's not completely glued on. Yeah, we're almost at the end. Just want to change the oil. Sometimes I like to warm it up first, but I don't want to have to keep opening the garage door because it is 19 degrees out. And I'll let all my heat out. Too many times in a row. The machine is actually tilted back some too. That's a good color. The last time that was changed in the factory. Let that piss out for a while. So that's it. While that's draining, we can take a quick look at the auger. And it has shear pins. I I'm just kind of feeling for play. If you have one that's a little larger than another, you know the shear pins are about ready to break. They seem to be okay. The box in the center, generally they're just packed with grease. Some of the older ones actually had oil in them, but for the most part, they're just packed with grease. So it's really not like you can service them and dip into them and see how much fluid is in them. Everything looks okay. I don't see any bends on anything. If there was, we can kind of tweak them back a little bit. I'm looking at the impeller in the back. I do not see anything out of the ordinary. Sometimes you grab a frozen newspaper or something, really kind of throws them out of whack. This actually looks fairly decent. It also has those plastic bushings that we talked about on the other side are in here. I'm actually just going to go dribble some oil down in each side of those to help them. I'm not going to disassemble that for now. They don't have any grease. Older stuff was built much more like a tank, and everything had grease fittings and everything. You can kind of access. Even the center here on old snowblowers would have a grease fitting, and the grease fitting was just like we saw with the axle, with the wheels getting locked up. You would pump grease in it so that if you broke a shear pin, it would spin around, and if it was dry over time, it would rust. The axle would rust to the auger blades, and it just doesn't. They just don't do that anymore. It looks like they kind of give them a bit of play too, though, so there is some room that's in there, and you can feel that these are all fine. It's like that little slip and slide going on there. They're almost dirty, but you mix it around. I don't see any like little metal trails popping up, so that's a good sign. That means it didn't really do any damage to the internals of the engine. Sometimes you spin that stuff around, it looks like a silver rainbow, you know. That right there is a reflection of the tire. That's not metal. And I filled it with oil. Can you tell? That's a little dark. All right, so on the bucket, the parts that contact the ground, this is the cutting edge. And then it has what's called shoes or skids or skis on the side of them. Different manufacturers call them different things. But essentially, depends on the surface that you are running on. If you're on pavement, you pretty much want the cutting edge either close to the ground or actually touching the ground. It depends on your situation if you're really trying to scrape right down to it. You can see the wear on this one. Generally, it's the outer edges will have a little bit more than the center. Just the way it is. From you're usually cutting on one side or the other, especially once you make your second pass, and it all depends if you're going this way across or if you're going this way across. It leans down more on one side because all the pressure of the snow going in it forces it down, so it gets a little bit of a cup to it. The shoes, on the other hand, let me finish my thought. So on pavement, you want pretty close to the ground, and then if you have a gravel driveway or dirt driveway or whatnot, you would make a larger gap on this. If you have a gravel driveway, you would probably leave a good half-inch distance in between there. I don't quite know where this one's going to end up. I may bring this to my house and just leave it for a backup. I have a tractor that I use, a Honda, and this will probably be used for making just like dog paths and that kind of thing for in the yard on the lawn. I'm probably going to set it up where, I don't know, like a paint stick thickness in between. Again, you do that by adjusting the shoes on the side, and I'll show you those. And those are the shoes. Older ones had metal skis on them. These are, you can see it's adjusted all the way up, but you actually see it's kind of getting worn down. That has more room to go. You could probably go to right about there. But I'm going to take them off and flip them around because that's what you can do. It's got a double edge, so once you get so worn, you can take them, flip them the other way around. That's what I'm going to do, and I'm probably going to get a little thin piece of metal or wood laid on there, and we'll set it up. Hit it with a hammer. I know it's a little dark, but a piece of 1/8" steel. I'm gonna throw it underneath there for air gap. Just kind of bring them down. I should do the same on the other side. That's it. You should see a little daylight, a hair of daylight underneath it. And that's what we got. Good. Yeah, you can see it from the back side now. Going across. One thing that happens, and some people just kind of keep going and going with them. Eventually, it'll get so bad. I've seen them where the auger is physically touching the ground and it's actually chewing up on the driveway. This has a good 3/4 of an inch, maybe an inch distance from it. That cutting edge probably has, it depends how it's set up. Like right now, it won't be an issue at all because it's not touching. But if you were set up to drag on the ground, that probably has about another 2 seasons left in it. And it's time. You're ready to fire it up. Throttle. Choke is, it's on choke. Give it a squirt. Let's see what we get. Choke off. Yep. Remember when we said that carburetor is nice and clean? It has issues. Yep, there it is. Oh, if it shows up, a little white speck right in the middle. Got me. Sorry about the background noise, but if you look close, you see this little white dot in there. And there's some debris on the emulsion tube. There's a hunk sticking right there. That's what I get for not cleaning it all the way. We do it right because we do it twice. Let's go fire it up. Some choke, a couple of those. Nice. There we go. Everything seems good. They're always kind of rattling in the front is kind of normal. It's just the nature of them. Everything seems good. The belts are fine. The tensions are fine when you go and grab them. Grab the correct lever. If you watch, you'll see that there's a spring in the back. If you get you in there, you can see that spring starts to expand. That keeps you from putting too much tension on the belt. If that spring was not expanding, there is an adjustment. You could take this idler pulley, loosen the bolt up, and it's on a slide. You can give it a little bit more. There's no cracks in the belt, so we're going to leave that alone. It still has plenty of adjustment, and the back belt stays on a constant tension with a spring preload and no cracks in that belt. So both of those are fine. We're not going to screw with those. This is just dish soap and water. I'm going to give it a misty down and wipe the whole thing down. A little bit of a cleaning. Then we're going to go put it on the ground, and I just want to make sure that the gears are okay, that it's got 2 speeds reversed, neutral is where neutral is when you pull the lever in. If not, we can tweak that. And that when we drop it on the ground, that the tires will do a burnout for the best way to say it. You don't want it so that you pull the lever, but you're able to stop the machine. That means when you go to a snowbank, it's not going to be able to push through. So just one last check on that drive disc to make sure it's got enough life left to it. Well guys, that's about it. Seems like it functions fine. Everything does what it's supposed to do. I think we paid, I'm pretty sure it was 40 bucks for it. It wasn't much. And you know, about $1.50 worth of oil. Everything else was in decent shape. Just needed a little bit of love, a little bit of service. Good machine. Looks like it was kept out of the weather. It was stored in a garage. If this was the springtime, I'd probably spray it down with fluid film just to give some coating so things don't rust in the future. But right now we're just going to leave it as is. And I have a person that's interested in it already. Again, it's the season, so I start getting contacted for this stuff, but worked out pretty good. All right, guys, I'm tired. I'm going to go home and pass some snow. I probably blow some snow with it, but thankfully that is not the case yet. It's just 19 degrees with no snow. So value of it, probably new. It's probably a $1,200 machine new, worth about 400 bucks now. Be up around, if it was a little bit more rusty, I'd say 350. If it had a headlight setup in it, I would bump it up to about maybe 425, 450. All right, guys, thank you so much for just hanging out with me and spending time and doing some wrenching in the garage and bringing some yard sale stuff back to life. Till the next one, see you later. Bye. She's a peach.